following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland, and I am going to fulfill, as I generally do, a promise that I made to my listening audience a long time ago. I promised to interview the most interesting people on the planet. Today is no exception. The man, the myth, the legend, the pharmacist of Alameda fame, Jerry Feitelberg, comes back to the zone from his trip abroad. Jerry, welcome back.
Well, thank you, Ralph. We had a great time. We went to 9 countries. We saw so many different things and so much to recount. The big problem.
Let's say now this is a cruise. You're not.
Well,
not
we did a pre-cruise and a post-cruise. We did a pre-cruise 3 or 4 days in Copenhagen. And after the cruise, we did 4 days in Amsterdam. And the cruise started in Copenhagen and ended in Amsterdam. And we had a 14-day cruise in between. And we had a wonderful time. Learned a lot about a lot of people.
Okay, what's the most surprising thing you learned that you never would have guessed about people?
The people in the European countries, they have the town centers like Copenhagen. There's a lot of foot traffic. Amsterdam has a tremendous amount of foot traffic. Russia, the same thing. We went to a very small country, Estonia. We went to Gdansk in Poland, and their old town was phenomenal. I have a lovely story to tell you about our experience there. So the thing that amazed me was that people walk about freely, and they don't have to think about some yo-yo with an AR-15 coming in and shooting up the crowds. They just don't have to worry about that, and that's a nice feeling. There is crime. There is crime. There are always going to be people stealing things. They warn you about pickpockets, but chances are it's so rare that someone would have a mass slaying in any of these cities. It really is. It's very, very comforting to know that you can walk around in crowds and not have to worry.
Interesting that you mentioned that. This, it was last Friday or the Friday before, was the last music festival on what they call music on the Grove in Alameda, the Cab Grove. They have a music festival all through the summertime. And this was the last one, and I walked out to it, and I saw the crowds, and it was beautiful, playing beautiful music, and all of a sudden it hit me, because that's what terrorism is. It puts shit in your head, and domestic terrorism is no different. So look at all these people grouped together. All it would take is just boom, 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 a crazy nut coming up. There's nobody with guns, and I walked home. That was it. I'm out of there. It ruins our lifestyle, and
it certainly does.
And if you experienced pleasure in groups in people getting together in groups without having to worry about that, and the idea that you had to go to Europe to do that, I'm glad you experienced the pleasure, but there's a lot of sadness in that. It evokes a lot of sadness. This country is messed up over guns. You have to have magazines. I don't understand that. But go ahead, please continue. Sorry for
It's
my
okay.
outrage.
No, that's okay, and it's a very valid outrage. We all want to be able to go to a music concert, to an outdoor concert, and not worry about getting shot up. You know, the people in Las Vegas
to a mall to
ago.
pray. You could go to pray,
to a mall.
It's craziness, and people equate the big guns with the handguns. They say, look how many more people are getting killed with handguns. That's not the point. Most of the people getting killed with handguns are crime on crime type thing. It isn't the innocent people getting killed with handguns generally, but it's the innocent people being mowed down by these automatic guns. And, you know, you're never going to get people to give up their guns voluntarily.
Not for sure.
But they could at least give up the magazines and make an old guy like me happy. That's it. It would change so much if for nothing more than, like I say, the ability to go out fear-free, and that's it. So you mentioned something in an email. I'm glad you do, because there aren't many people with logic, and you and I seem to be the minority these days.
Well, you know, they talk about socialism. You know, in the upcoming election, the Democrats are going to be labeled as socialists. We had gone to a museum in the National Museum in Copenhagen, and we're going down the street, and it was a very lovely shoe store. We went in, and I ended up buying a nice pair of shoes, and Isla bought a couple pair of shoes. They're very nice people. We had a long chat with the young lady as we were paying the bill. They were saying healthcare, everything, all your healthcare is taken care of. You do pay higher sales tax. They tell you that, but their quality of life is much better. The kids' education is free. The university is free. They take care of their elderly. They don't let them live in poverty. They have their health care taken care of. If they need nursing care, it's taken care of. And so you do pay a higher tax, but it's worth it. You get something for it. And you have the quality of life knowing that you're not going to get shot walking down the street. You're going to be able to live your life and have a nice life with your family. Your kids are going to get educated to whatever their ability is. If they want to go to finish high school, fine. If they want to go to the university, it's fine. And this is the way they live, and there's nothing wrong with that. And everyone seemed free. They were enjoying life. The restaurants were full. Tivoli Gardens in Denmark was gorgeous. And there's a lot to say for it. Granted, it's a smaller country, and they don't have the diverse population that they do in the United States. But they made up their minds to be a better society. And it's that way in Sweden. It's that way in Norway. It's that way in the Netherlands and a lot of the European countries. And it's a big factor in their quality of their lives appear to be better.
You know that we could have that here if it weren't for greed and corruption.
That's for sure. Here everything is on big business. Everything is on the 90-day, the quarterly reports. And if you're not making a lot of money, there's going to be people who are going to be corporate raiders and take over your business. And it's grab everything off the table. And even if there's a few crumbs, we're not going to let you have them. And
it's the mindset of Americana that people could even be considering a re-election of this schmuck, Trump, is they do it because, we're working, we have money in our pocket. That greed. I mean, this guy is destroying our ecology, and our state sickens me. I'm glad you got to experience socialism without the stigma attached. Why is such a stigma attached to the word? I spend half my time on Facebook explaining the difference between socialism and communism to people who gloss over just hippie this, hippie that, and the other half explaining that there are two words, fetus and baby.
Yeah.
And that's all Facebook is to me. That's all these people come down on me for. That they pick arguments with me. I'm a socialistic hippie, and I'm a baby killer, wrapped into one little Jew boy in Alameda. Unbelievable.
I have to tell you about our experience in Berlin. I'm gonna then I'll tell you about Poland. We made a stop in Berlin. It was a 3-hour drive from the port to the city. We had about 6.5 hours of touring the city. We went to the Reichstag, and I was standing. I took pictures of the Reichstag. I posted it on Facebook, and that's where the Reichstag fire in 1933, where it all started, where the fire got rid of the Weimar Republic. It elevated Hitler to chancellor, and that was the beginnings of World War II. They restored the building. The parliament does not meet there. They have their buildings close by, but they're not there. And part of the tour, we went down the River Spree, and that separated East Berlin from West Berlin. And we're going down on the riverboat. It was a little cold and windy that day. It may have even rained, but didn't last long. And we go down there, and they're telling us, the guy says, "Did you see the white crosses on the wall?" And I didn't remember, but when I posted the picture, I said I had taken a picture of it. The white crosses represented the memorial to those that tried to escape by swimming across the river from East Berlin into West Berlin. And what the East Germans did is that if you tried to swim the river or swim underneath the river, they booby-trapped it. They had traps for these people, and they got ensnared in the traps and drowned. And so this was the memorial to those. When the communists took over, they wanted to imprison their people. They did not want them to go from East Berlin to West Berlin. If you somehow had a boat and tried to escape, they had chains in the river, and the chains the boats would hit the chains and it would shred them and probably kill the people on board, and that's the way it was. And people forget that. So they took us. Most of the wall is gone now, but they do have a memorial. They have a double row of bricks throughout the city, and the wall was over 100 miles long. Throughout the city. That's how much the East Germans did not want the people to leave. And so we got to the wall, and we could see it. And right next to the wall, there was a sign that said "Topography of Terror." And we looked down, and there was the remains of a building next door. And what it was the basement of the headquarters of the Gestapo. Was on that very spot. And I'm saying, holy crap, here I am. Had we been living in Europe at that time, we probably would have been dead.
Oh, definitely would have been dead. No question.
Yeah, and then when we left, we went to the other side of the wall, and then the guy pointed out to us and he said, "You see that building to the left?" He said, "Yeah." He said that was the air ministry of the Nazis, and that was the headquarters for Hermann Goering. The communists did not blow up the building. They used it for storage or something for some reason, so it still stands. But the Russians had grievances against the Nazis, as you well know. And they were not very... And one of the buildings in the Topography of Terror next to us was riddled with bullet holes. They never patched it up. You could see all where the bullets were hitting the building. And there were two statues that the Soviets cut the heads off the statues to show that the Germans said, "You no longer are in control. We are in control." And we went to Checkpoint Charlie, which is the replica of Checkpoint Charlie, but it was a nice experience. But I have to tell you, the city has been rebuilt. It's a gleaming city. A lot of new buildings in East Berlin, and the German economy is doing very, very well, and they have a nice country now. One of the other things that they said is when they had the World Cup.
Yeah, but you know how many neo-Nazi groups still survive in Germany today? There are more neo-Nazi groups, people belonging to neo-Nazi groups, than there are people belonging to the Green Party.
That is true. And it's a problem, and Ralph, it's always going to be a problem. Anti-Semitism is always bubbling just below the surface. And all it takes is to have someone like the schmuck in Washington give them license, and they start coming out of the woodwork. And that's
hey, there are good people on both sides. He said it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what he said.
So basically what he's saying is that he's endorsing that sort of behavior.
Exactly. And it's going
pure
on
and simple.
in pure and simple. They feel emboldened to do what they're doing. And that's why we had the attacks in Poway on the Chabad. We had the attacks in Pittsburgh in the Tree of Life Synagogue. Although he wasn't president when they had the attack in Charleston, South Carolina, where a white supremacist killed 9 or 10 black parishioners in church. You ought to feel safe to go to church. You ought to feel safe to go to a synagogue. You ought to feel safe for your kids to go to school. And we don't have that anymore. And
when same man goes to the NRA because he really feels, I really think he feels that there's a problem with these assault rifles and these magazines and shit. I mean, he has to. He's got kids, he's got Melanka yakking at him and stuff, and Ivanka and all these people of more reason. He goes to the NRA with good intentions. He announced that he's got to do something, and the NRA talks him out of it in a lunch meeting, and he flip-flops on the whole idea of gun reform. It's disgusting.
It's amazing.
Disgusting.
And he's done it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and a special shout out to his enablers, the Republican Senate. Oh my God. You got Romney and who else? Romney, and he's coming out. They're going to make a stink. And Romney is the only real one. And let's face it, Romney, 8 years ago, would not have been our choice for dog catcher. I mean, he belongs to a religious cult. He's crazy go nuts. But he's the least crazy go nuts. This is what our country has turned to. I'm sorry.
You got Moscow Mitch McConnell. You got Moscow Mitch.
Moscow Mitch.
Yeah, you got bills coming through the House of Representatives, and he doesn't even take action on it because he doesn't think the president will sign it. That's not how it works. You're supposed to deliberate the bills, pass to the president. If he doesn't like it, let him veto it, and then you have the chance to override the veto. Now, you don't have, just because he thinks he won't sign it doesn't mean. Then why have a Senate? Just say we'll have a unicameral House of Representatives, and then just pass it to the Senate.
That's a good question. Why have a Senate? We'll get into that in another podcast. But I want to do this. I want to lighten it up a little bit, and you tell me about how you got my culinary taste going with your observation of weed sold openly through in Amsterdam. And you don't partake. You never have. You never will. That's not the point. But the point is, I think I could help educate you. You saw this and you were amazed that they had a choice on the menu, the good stuff or the strong stuff or the stronger stuff. Right. But I'm going to tell you something. Northern California has better quality weed than Amsterdam. Amsterdam has much better quality. I can't think. I blank on the word. And it'll come to me in a minute.
Well, here's the thing. We were in Downs Square, which is the busiest, and they had a wonderful. On Friday they had all these kids making noise to do something about the climate. World War. There was a couple thousand people in the square, so that was kind of nice. But if you go out to the hotel, you make a left. There's a narrow street loaded with restaurants, loaded with bars. People, wall-to-wall people all over the street. Their vitality is just unbelievable. And so
the word is hash, by the way. Amsterdam has great hash. So, but Northern California, if you're listening out there, we grow, given everything. Humboldt County, indoors. It's now legal to grow indoors. This, that, and the other thing. We grow the best weed going. I'm so proud of that.
I have no way to challenge you on that.
I know you don't. Believe me on this one, and I will believe you when you tell me anything about the pharmaceutical industry, as you were the maven himself. 1995, California Pharmacist of the Year.
Yeah, that was something.
Oh, that was something, Jerry. No, I will commend you on that every time I think of it when you're on the podcast. That's a tremendous feat. There is some.
Well, we can discuss that at another time, why I did it and what it was all about, and it had to do with corporate greed, so stuff that you like. But
right, and you've explained it on these airwaves, and I'm so thrilled that you did that, and you come up against what I do, the unholy trinity: big business, government, and organized religion, and I respect you for that. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we were, as I said, we're going down this street, and we get to this bakery, and I'm taking pictures of the pastries in the window. They were just absolutely fabulous. And we went inside, and Isla and I had a piece of cheesecake for dessert. We shared it. It was absolutely out of this world. It was phenomenal. So as we're going back, and I took the picture, I saw the baked brownies on the top shelf of the window, and it told you this is mild, this is strong, and I guess if you have the strong, they tell you only eat half the brownie, and it's gonna take you places, you're gonna get high, but it's for sale openly. And then as you walk by the bars and the coffee shops, you can smell the marijuana. Marijuana has a very distinctive odor. It's pungent, and anyone that smelled it knows what it smells like. So you smell a lot of that, but it doesn't seem to bother people. We didn't see druggies sitting on the street. We didn't see druggies shooting up. You didn't see poop on the street like you do in San Francisco. But here, and there was a tremendous amount of food traffic. We stopped in a convenience store, and they sell the brownies there too. You can buy it anywhere.
Yeah. But the same is true here in Northern California or in California. It's basically legal, and anything you want to procure, you can get legally delivered, literally.
But in California, the communities, the individual cities and towns can place restrictions on the sale of marijuana. So you may have to go.
I know, but you know what? Now that marijuana is legalized, and I do make a study of this, mostly for my show, Canna Chat, It's a podcast show on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. There have been X number of dollars since legalization of weed products sold, cannabis products sold legally. And you know what? There have been the same amount of products sold under the table, scofflaw, illegally, without taxes, without this, that, and the other thing. The black market that supersedes all this legalization in the city and this, that, and the other thing, it runs rampant. It takes care of the good old folks who grew and supplied back in the days when they put their lives at risk, literally, for so doing. And their freedom, their lives and their freedom at risk. I find it to be wonderful. And any time that someone can enjoy cannabis without going through the ritual of paying the state X number of dollars for testing and taxes, those labs are corrupt every bit as much as any other corrupt thing. They're going to give you bad readings. They're going to give you incompetent readings. So I'm so glad it's legal, and I'm so glad you got to see it in a country where you experienced it as being legal. Believe me, it's okay in California, too.
It's not a big deal. Anyway, the one problem that we had on the trip was we were 9 or 10 hours ahead of the West Coast. And consequently, getting the scores on baseball teams or the football teams, I would get them, if the games were played on Sunday, I'd get them about 9 o'clock in the morning when we woke up to get the scores of the A's games. And, of course, you know, I've been following the A's. I think they've got 93 wins at the moment. They've got 6 games left, and if they win 4 out of the 6, I think they will secure the first wild card slot, which means they will have a home game, you know, to play the one-game playoff. And of course,
well, first, Jerry, let me interrupt and tell you to put MLB on your phone. There's an app that will give you up to the minute, up to the second scores and details of what's going on wherever you are. I hope you do that.
I have an app that does that. The problem was the time delay. If the game started at 7 o'clock in the evening, you just fast forward 9 hours, so that would be midnight plus 4, be 4 a.m. in the morning. So I'm not. So and then it takes 3 hours.
Perfect time to pick up some scores and get awake and bake.
Yeah. So
Jerry,
we were able to follow the A's, and they got 93. They got 93 wins. They got 6 games left, and they play 2 weak sisters. They play in the Angels, that are having a terrible year. The Angels had the loss of Tyler Skaggs due to a drug. I think it was an accidental drug overdose, and then they played 4 with the Seattle Mariners. Even though the Mariners gave the A's fits earlier in the season, their season has fallen apart. I think they're going to finish last in the division. So the A's cannot, you know, in baseball, there's nothing more than what 4 teams like to do is play spoiler. The Angels will be trying to upend the apple cart for the A's, and so will the Mariners. But the A's
exactly right. They say these are weak teams, but this could make their season as far as they're concerned. They're playing for jobs next year. The pressure is off. These are the teams that historically come up and bite the contenders on the ass. Not just this year, all through the history of baseball. You think you got a good team coming in, and they come in and you know, they kick your butts because you're not ready.
No, it's not that. What they'll do is they'll bring up a guy from the minor leagues because they can expand the rosters in September, and they'll throw him out there. It might be a lefty that they've never seen before, or maybe a couple guys know that, and he might baffle them for 5-6 innings, and then they get some good work out of their bullpen, and it's very easy to upset the A's apple cart. They lost one to Kansas City. They lost one to Kansas City and one to Texas. But they've been playing very, very good baseball.
And they're getting their pitchers back in good order.
Yeah.
Tell us about those guys.
They got Mania back, and he's pitched very well. I think he's 3-0 in his 4 starts. They brought up A.J.
And Mangden is healthy.
Yeah, Mangden is healthy. They brought up Luzardo. And so they've got Diekman has done a job for them, and Soria and Petit are resting right now, and hopefully because they were overworked all season long, so they're going to be loaded in the bullpen. the thing that they have to get, they're better off with home field advantage, and then they have to win the playoff game. And if the playoffs were to start today, and they were to win the wild card playoff game, they would face the Houston Astros. And the Astros, they beat them 6 out of the last time they played, 6 out of 8. And the Yankees, if the Yankees have to play the A's, they'll be shaking in their boots because the A's took 4 out of 6 for them from the season.
Well,
so the
Yankees are so beat up on their pitching staff that on paper they appear to be the team that you want to play, but they can surprise you. And teams that win 6-5, it's better than winning 6. It's just the same as winning 2-1. You know, if your pitching staff is. And in today's day and age of inflated homers, because obviously the ball is different.
Yeah, no kidding. I remember when I was a kid, I think it was in 1947, the Cincinnati Reds set a new major league record. I think they had 221 home runs for the season. I think the Giants may have tied them later in that, in that era. Now you've got
the A's beat them eventually.
They got 4 or 5 teams with more than 250 home runs. Who knows? The Yankees might hit 300 home runs by the end of the season. It's just amazing. The Twins.
The Mets had 5 guys who hit over 20 home runs, including Alonso hitting 50, and McNeil, who is not a home run hitter, joins those guys. It's crazy, but in turn,
They got another guy with 48 homers on the team too. I can't think of his name. But you look at the A's. You look at their infield. They got 3 infielders that hit over 30 home runs: Stockman, Semien, and Olsen. And Profar hit 20.
Hasn't Semien come up to be one hell of a star? Who would have thought? Semien.
He's going to be an MVP candidate. MVP. He's that good.
Wow. And you and I have been doing a podcast on the A's for going on 3 years now, and we've been talking about how at first he was the weak spot, as Profar seems to be now, but Profar's a hell of a fielder, by the way. And he's an athlete. But Semien started to become adequate, and he has slowly rounded out to be a superstar. You just have to accept that these guys can improve, and that's the beauty of the game, is some make the adjustments and some don't. And hats off to him.
I'm going to give you 2 words to the success of Marcus Semien. And if he were here with the A's now for Profar, he'd make Profar a better fielder. And the 2 words are Ron Washington. He is a genius.
He is indeed, but I saw Profar make a play the other day. I see about 10 defensive plays every night on the highlights that absolutely amazes me. What an age we live in. Infield play, outfield play, catchers doing things that are athletic. It's a good time to be a baseball fan, despite the fact that it's not the old days. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, they don't bunt, they don't do hit and run, they don't steal bases, they don't want to waste out. They're all looking for the 3-run homer, and the ball is flying out of the park. Yesterday, I caught a little bit of the A's game. It was my first game in almost a month. And in the first inning, I saw the Rangers hit 3 home runs, 2 solo home runs and a 2-run bomb. Boom, boom, boom. It was 4-0, and the A's couldn't recover. But the A's were lucky because the Red Sox beat the Rays. And I don't know the Rays' schedule the rest of the week. I don't know if they're playing the Yankees or anybody who they're playing the next 6 games. But the A's the Rays and the Indians are tied, and if they finish in a tie, I think they have a 1-game playoff, and then they play the A's. I think that happened once before. So we'll see how that turns out. The Rays have got good pitching. Kevin Cash has done an outstanding job with the team. They're going to win 90 games again this year. The A's are 93. They won 97 last year, and if they win 5 out of 6, they'll hit 98, or they could hit 99. It'd be absolutely an amazing year for them. But they'll finish 6.
Another time, I'd like to take my hat off to Billy Beane. Does he do it every year? He seems to do it with smoke and mirrors. He gets more per buck out of these guys, more bang for their buck than any GM. Like, he's been doing it 15 years now.
More than that. Since he became GM in the '98 season. This is his 21st year. So
wow.
But look at the guys they brought up in September or in late August. They brought up Seth Brown, and he's hitting about 360, and he's playing well in the outfield. Left-hand hitter, left-hand thrower. And then they have, of course, they made the deal for Ramon Laureano, which was underneath the radar. No one heard of him, and then he's a terrific defensive player. He has over 20 home runs this year. Probably would have had more, but he had that shin issue. Piscotty's on the DL.
He gets hurt. They don't miss a beat. They bring in Mahaha. How do you pronounce his name?
How about Canna? Mark Canna's got 26
Canna,
runs.
that's the guy.
Canna's got 26. Pinder can hit. Pinder's got about 15. They've got guys up and down. And Fegley has over 10 homers. I think he's got 12 for the year. They got guys up and down that line that can put the ball out of the park. And we were on the ship, and I read the score. The first game the A's played in Houston, they got beat the 15-0 or 15 to whatever it was. Then the next night they scored 21 runs and said, "We can score runs too, Houston." And they took the last 3 games. And they got pitching, they got hitting, they got defense, they got all the ingredients necessary to win a world championship. Whether it comes to
they've got a kid who I really like in Pinder. I like him for his versatility. This guy can play and give you a good game in 7 different positions. And,
Well, it was good that Canna picked up the slack, because Chris Davis, after he got hurt in Pittsburgh, only has maybe 3 or 4 home runs in the second half of the season. He looked like he was going to have another 40 home run year, but he injured his rib cage in Pittsburgh. But Canna picked up the slack, and they didn't miss a beat. They did not miss a beat. Now, I'd like to tell you one thing. The thing that really got me on the cruise and on the tour, the vacation. We had to make the reservations before we left. We went to the Anne Frank house in Amsterdam, and Anne Frank, as you know, if she were alive, she'd be 90 years old this year. She was born in 1929. She was born in Germany, and when she was 4 years old, the family moved to Holland to get away from the Germans. And they hid in this warehouse or this house for over 2 years. And we took a tour of the house, and the stairs were very, very steep. And when you get up to there's a bookcase that they had a room, and behind the bookcase was the stairway to the secret annex. And how they lived for 2 years, and I think there were 8 people living in the house. All but one perished. Otto Frank was the only survivor. And to see how they lived, they could only run water during the day when there were people working in the factory. If they ran it at night, someone might hear them. How they did their laundry, how they got their food, how they kept quiet. It was just amazing. And then the sad part was in 1944, they knew that the Allies had invaded Normandy. They heard about that. But they were arrested. That happened in June 6th of 1944. They were all arrested on August 4th of 1944. And then the family, Otto went one place. His wife died fairly shortly after she was arrested. The 2 daughters died in the camps. And when the war was over, Otto Frank came back to his house, and he learned about the deaths of his family from other people. Not only his family, but the other people that lived were hiding in the house with him. So, a very sad story.
That had to be very heavy. And
very
what puts
heavy.
things into proportion for me is that my mother, a Jewish woman, born in 1920, but she was born in Mount Kisco, New York.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
where were her parents from?
Her parents were from Russia, but they came over in the pogroms. So it's just a matter of Jews have been escaping shit for many years. This wasn't new, and there are still Holocaust deniers that think the Anne Frank diary was just put up there as public relations, and they use phrases like there were only, in quotes, only 227,000 killed in the Holocaust, end quote.
Yeah, right.
Well, as if only, that wouldn't be enough. That's not the point.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be enough, but what bullshit that is. And
yeah. When we were in Damascus, our guide said that 6 million Polish people died during World War II, and that included 2
my
million
grandmother
Jews.
and my father's brother and his family, kids too, were killed in that Holocaust.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
And how he missed it is he escaped. He went to Brussels. He learned a trade. He came here. He became a citizen by serving in the army. And after he served and became a citizen, he wasn't deported like the president is doing to people who have come here in seek of asylum, in seek of citizenship, and served, went to the Afghan front, and 2 or 3 times sometimes, and now they're being deported. There's something so seriously wrong with the fabric of this nation under Trump that
don't get me started with that idiot. This guy is, in my mind, is a monster. He is a monster. Yeah, he came out. He wants to stop California for setting stricter emission controls, which means more pollutants in the air, more people get cancer. He's relaxed the rules on dumping pollutants into the water. People are going to get sick from drinking the water. We all drink the same water. We breathe the same air. It should be clean. This guy feels he got away with the Mueller report. They can't touch him. He's going to do all this stuff, and I don't know how he gets up and looks at himself in the mirror. He's a man.
We can't even begin to get into, because of time, the Biden affair. I mean,
the Biden affair. Oh, yeah. That's enough to get him.
It's craziness.
But even the thing that's frustrating is they can do an impeachment inquiry, but they can't get him. They will not, the Republicans will not vote against him for whatever reason. They will not.
Well, they will if the people are outraged enough to not reelect them.
He's worn down the people. They just know he can get away with anything, and why bother? They're not going to do anything, and that's the way.
Well, then we're seriously fucked, Jerry.
Are we ever?
Yep. On that note, I'll end with a higher note. How about this? I'll end the podcast with saying, I am thrilled that you are back and safe, and you had a good time.
Oh, yeah, we really had a good time, and we saw a lot of things in Europe. Poland and Gdansk, the old town, they rebuilt it. We met Lech Walesa's son. The woman was showing us where Lech Walesa lived when they had the...
Shlomi Walecha? Was his name Shlomi Walecha?
No, Lech. L-E-C-H.
Lech, okay, Lech.
Yeah, his son is running. He came out and talked to us. His son is running for the Polish Parliament. We met, and when we were in Finland, we met a member of Parliament who is the Finnish attaché to Israel. We met him. That was kind of nice. I was on the bus. We went to the Jewish synagogue, which is a Moorish synagogue in St. Petersburg, and I met a lady who had a Boston accent, who grew up in the same part of Boston, in the Mattapan section of Boston where I grew up. When I was in Stockholm, I met a guy who was wearing a Harvard cap and it said 1636 on the back. And I said, well, the high school I went to was a year older. He says, I went there too. He went to Boston Latin School. He was in the class a year ahead of me. And I dropped some names, and he knew most of the people that I mentioned. So we became friends. We were in Poland, and we met people from Walnut Creek. We met people from Moraga on the cruise. And we had a really nice time, a very exciting time, very informative time. And it's nice to see people live the way they do in Europe. It's just a totally different experience. And especially when people come to San Francisco and they see the junkies on Market Street or close to Union Square shooting up, pooping on the street. It's just a terrible thing, and we have to get a handle on it. We did see a couple homeless people in Copenhagen, but they're well taken care of. People give them contributions, and that was the only homeless that we saw. Again, these countries are small. Norway has 5 million people. Sweden has 10 million people. Poland has about 35 million people. Estonia had 1.3 million people. So they're different. They're mostly homogeneous societies, and they're not going for the last dollar. That's the difference between the United States. The United States is geared to get every buck and show that quarterly report and bid the stock price up. So,
I'm glad you're home. That's the only thing I can tell you, Jerry.
I'm glad to be home. I'm looking forward to the playoffs. I think I got a credential for the if the A's are the home team, I'll have the credential and I'll be covering the game. So what more is better? What could be better?
Could you enjoy a better retirement if you planned it?
No, it's wonderful. It is. It's great. So
all right, my friend.
I'm
thank
thankful
you for being here. Thank you for listening. The guest is Jerry Feitelberg. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Adios.
Thank you, Ralph. Bye now.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerical dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.